I'm indeed Ben Steer. I'm the CTO at Pometry, and today I'll be speaking to you about our temporal graph system for decision intelligence and enhancing collaboration. So, as we just learned a little bit about, what are graphs and why are they important? Why do I love working on them? Well, graphs allow us to understand in our databases, in our CSVs, in our Excel spreadsheets, what are the underlying entities and relationships. And this is a much more human way of thinking about problems. So once we start applying different contexts, thinking about social network interactions, transactions, logistic networks, and how all of these combine, we get a much clearer idea of how we can start thinking about really interesting problems. And one of the things that we specialize at Pometry, alongside the kind of standard graph use cases that you might have seen before, is extracting networks from very complicated data. So for example, taking geospatial temporal data of boats traveling around the ocean, mapping this as a set of locations, and understanding where boats are co-locating together, and if this is nefarious or something that needs to be investigated. What most graph systems, however, struggle with is only viewing a snapshot in a single point in time. So what Pometry allows you to do is see how these networks and your underlying data is evolving. So for example, as we were hearing at the start of the day, we might have an actor on Twitter who starts off tweeting some very sort of normal things about their day to their friends and family. However, all of a sudden, this account becomes very political, starts tweeting at important people within the network, and this is actually coordinated with a set of other actors that are doing the same thing. And so by understanding this kind of change in behavior, this evolution around individuals and their wider network, we can act upon this quickly and, in this case, block these accounts and try to stem the flow. So instead of diving way deep into a load of different use cases, I thought I'd just pick one that we've built recently and show you what we build on top of our tool. So this is some data that we've been given from a large financial institution, about 300 million transactions across 8 banks within a single jurisdiction. So we were tasked with finding a variety of known patterns of interest around money laundering. So this is things like cycle detection, I send money to my friends and it eventually comes back to me. Layering through mule accounts where I send money out to multiple people and then it funnels down to an individual. As well as unknown patterns, so understanding how this behavior is evolving and allowing the sort of cat and mouse game to be in favour of the cat. And then finally, everything I'm about to show you was actually built in 2 weeks by one person, so our stack allows you to build from ingestion through to a full set of dashboards, all within the one ecosystem. So to begin, so in this sort of space, if you're not aware of the sort of financial money laundering space, there's a variety of questions that are interesting to ask. So there's things like, can I leverage risk scores and intelligence in one data silo and merge this with a load of information about Bob and Alice that I have in another set of information? So this is kind of conjoining data sets together into one network. If I asked something about Bob yesterday, like, is he a terrorist financier and he comes back clean, but today he comes back as a red flag? You know, why did I make this mistake? Can I go back and kind of audit my information trail and understand why I made a mistake yesterday? Are Bob and Alice making complicated money laundering plans, patterns, and are these changing over time? And finally, just the sheer volume of data, I've got terabytes upon terabytes that I'm trying to join together. How do I make sure that I can analyze all of this? So to begin, once you've loaded data into our tool, you can start exploring all of the different entity types that exist. So we're going to click on some accounts here, but there's many different data, entities types that have been loaded in. And once we search these, I think there's about 180 million of these in this particular data set. I can click on them and start exploring the properties that have been added to them, see how these properties have changed over time. There's a variety of statistics that have been calculated, all of which are completely customizable. I can start seeing who these people have interacted with over time, who they've transacted with, within certain time bounds, and see how this has changed. And I can also then click on these entities and start exploring them in a network view. So once this entity is loaded in, I click on it, I can get the same information as before, and then if I expand this, it will bring in all of the connections that it's had and how all of these people are connected to each other as well. At the bottom of this here, you can see a timeline section, so you can see how these interactions have evolved. And I can start exploring all of my neighbors and other interactions that are in this sort of subnetwork. The interesting thing here, obviously, is if I know who I'm looking for, it's very easy for me to click on them and explore. But in a lot of instances, I've got hundreds of millions of people. Who on earth do I start picking on? So the second side of Pometry is allowing you to build very straightforward risk and analytics pipelines directly in Python and merge these with other machine learning tools. And what this allows you to do is define things like cycle detection and layering, as I specified before, and then find instances of entities which are involving both of these. So in this particular case here, this is the subgraph that's been generated by our tool, which shows a cryptocurrency exchange in the middle. The top side has a layering pattern where someone has sent money to multiple accounts and then sent it into this cryptocurrency exchange. And on the bottom side, we have this cycle detection where someone has received money, sent this round, and sent it back into the exchange. And what this typically means is that either this exchange has got very bad KYC checks and is vulnerable to be attacked, or is actively involved in money laundering, but in either case, the bank needs to investigate. And finally, if you're a high-level stakeholder that doesn't have time to kind of dig into all of these individuals, you want to leave that to your analysts, you're also able to just ask the graph natural language questions, which, so in this case here, we're going to say, generate me a report about a particular account that I'm interested in, and I want to know what risk schemes that it's been involved in. So this will come back with a summary based around this graph, and give you an answer. In this case here, this individual's been involved in a variety of different risks that have triggered during our pipeline. I can then open that back into the graph view and make sure that this is correct and start digging in from there. And obviously, all of this is secured along with the roles that you have, so anyone that's asking questions will only get back information that they're allowed to see. So, in summary, what does this mean for you? Well, you get one platform to contextualize and analyze all of your data. We have this temporal analytics where I can roll back to previous versions, but also include time as a sort of first-order citizen in my questions, understand how behavior is changing and evolving. The whole implementation is very, very easy to do with a very small team, so you can rapidly iterate. And also this scales to ridiculous degrees. We currently have a deployment at the moment that has over 100 billion edges inside of it. We've dealt with hundreds of terabytes of data, and all of this runs embedded air-gapped in a 10 meg binary. So you can just run this all on your laptop. I'm running it outside if you want to come and have a look for yourself.